I'm going to read my book, Brave Little Cookie. I hope you enjoy it. When I was born, my mom told me I had beautiful black eyes and that I was the color of a chocolate chip cookie. Every time she looked at me, it made her think of a cookie. I guess it's no surprise that the nickname she gave me was Cookie. My father, my two brothers, and my sister also started to call me Cookie. By the time I was 2 years old, the only name I answered to was Cookie. Our family lived in the oldest city in the United States, St. Augustine, Florida. My dad was a preacher and my mother was a teacher. They both enjoyed their jobs. Back in those days, black people were called colored and white people were not nice to us. Things were separate, but were not equal for people of color like me. My mother taught at a colored school because the races were not allowed to be taught together in one school. White people enforce bad rules to make us feel inferior. They believed that they were superior, better than we were in every way, which was not true. For example, we were not allowed to sit in front of the bus with them. There were signs in the bus that read, "Colored to the rear." We could not stay in hotels. We could not sit down and eat in any restaurants with white customers. We had to enter restaurants through the back door, and we were served with disposable paper plates. If by chance there were places to sit, they were raggedy and the area was not clean. Ironically, all the food in most of the restaurants were cooked by people of color. There were separate water fountains and bathrooms which were clearly marked colored and white only. It made me sad, and it made my parents sad too. My dad joined the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and became president of the organization in St. Augustine. The NAACP is an organization of people who work hard to obtain justice and defend people who have not been treated fairly. This group included hard-working, everyday people like my dad. Also, there were many famous people such as W.E.B. Du Bois, Rosa Parks, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, Medgar Evers, and others who participated. These civil rights leaders and my dad were all labeled troublemakers because they were trying to make things better. They were also told by the white people in charge of the city to stop trying to change things. Dad would not stop trying to make things better. The harder my father worked, the more white people tried to stop him and make him powerless. White people used their influence to have my mother fired from her job as a teacher, as a way of reinforcing to my dad that he needed to stop advocating for black people. Mom got another job about 30 miles away. It did not last long. She was fired again because of my dad's civil rights activities. We were told by a hate group called the Ku Klux Klan, KKK, to leave town or they would destroy our family. They burned a cross in front of our house to demonstrate that they knew where we lived and they could kill our family. I was sad and I was so scared. My family lived in danger and fear. For our family's safety, we had to move to another city. I thought it was impossible for things to get any worse, but I was wrong. It did. We left St. Augustine and moved to Gainesville, Florida, our new home. Mom got another teaching job, which she enjoyed very much. She asked Dad not to get involved in civil rights struggles. My dad stayed quiet for about a month or two. He decided to observe and to see what the issues needed to be addressed in our new town. And immediately he saw that the schools were still segregated. By now, colored people were identified as black, and the term colored was slowly replaced. Changing what people called us didn't change the way we were being treated. There were two separate high schools, Lincoln High, where all the blacks attended, and Gainesville High, where all the whites attended. The Alachua County School Board in Gainesville refused to integrate the public school systems, despite the law demanding they do so. My father again became the president of the NAACP, this time in Gainesville. Although my mother understood the reason for my father's involvement, she was furious because she had already lost her job several times before, and she was certain that it would happen again. Surprisingly, it did not. On behalf of the NAACP, my father filed a lawsuit against the Alachua County School Board, and the NAACP won. This meant that black children would have new schools, new books, and we would be treated equally. Hurrah! The judge said that the school system could no longer be segregated. The schools had to integrate. If they refused to do so, they would be forced by federal law. My dad and others thought this decision would immediately make life better for black people. Gainesville was late in the implementation of the 1954 decision known as Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. In this civil rights case, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that the law of separate but equal was unconstitutional and illegal. At the time of the decision, I was 6 years old. Years later, I was 16, and the schools were still separate by color. Since the courts had ruled in the NAACP's favor, Dad had a plan to get black kids to agree to attend the all-white school. Dad began to go door to door, asking parents to register their children to attend the all-white Gainesville High School. Every house Dad would go to, the answer was no. They were worried that people would call us all kinds of unkind and disrespectful names. We all had experienced public incidences where white folks would say things about the color of our skin and other things about our race that were harmful. The parents that my father spoke to did not want to put their children through that type of verbal abuse. By summer's end, Dad had one 10th grader, one 11th grader enrolled to attend Gainesville High. Yet, no 12th grader had stepped forward, leaving my father bewildered and distraught. I can't find a parent of a 12th grader to promote the cause, he said. I could not help but think to myself, would all my dad's hard work and my family's sacrifices be in vain? That night in bed, I tried to fall asleep. I could only see my dad's disappointed face. As I tossed and turned, I agonized about what it would take for me to be that student to volunteer. How would it impact me and others in the future? The next morning, I rushed to Dad. Here I am. Send me. I'll go to the white school. He replied, Are you sure? I said, Yes, I want to promote the cause. I will sacrifice my 12th grade year to open the door of opportunity for other students for generations to come. My dad replied, Cookie, you are so brave. My mother, on the other hand, remained furious. However, as time progressed, the idea of me attending the white school became more tolerable for my mother. Her advice was simple. She said, Cookie, you must kill them with kindness. If they are nasty to you, don't be nasty to them. It will accomplish nothing. By now, Mother seemed less worried about losing her job. I prayed and asked God for whatever was needed to get me through the year that was ahead. I would definitely need strength. I was nervous. I could not sleep the night before school started. I was anxious, scared, and sad about leaving all my friends at the all-black school. My mother got up early and fixed me a big breakfast. However, my stomach was churning and I could not eat much of anything. On the first day of school, Dad drove me and the two other students to school. We were escorted by 2 Gainesville police cars for protection. When I entered my first classroom, I sat in the first desk on the first row. Immediately, students in the entire first, second, and third rows stood up and moved to the other side of the room. It was as if I was carrying an infectious disease, but the truth was that they didn't want to be near me simply because of the color of my skin. Later, when I went to the lunchroom and took a seat, all the students at the table stood up to leave. I got the same treatment at the library. This behavior became routine for the white students. All day, every day, no one spoke to me. Those days of silence became a way of life, and at times I felt lonely. As time passed, I wondered if I would make any friends. My classmates became increasingly hostile. Each day that I went to school, some white boy or girl would spit on me and call me terrible names. I would wipe off the spit from my face and keep walking to class. Their cruelty was hard to ignore, but I promised myself that I would be brave. I also thought about the words my mother had said to me. kill them with kindness. The things that my classmates did to intimidate and frighten me were a regular occurrence. Not a day went by that I did not find dead roaches, rats, or snakes waiting for me at my desk. My own attitude began to change because the way that I was being treated at school. I began to dislike white people. My teachers were not nice to me either. They did not want me to be in their classes. I was an excellent student and had always made above average grades. However, at Gainesville High, my teachers marked my schoolwork unfairly, hoping that I would drop out of school and return to the all-black school. It was not just the students, even the teachers exhibited a hatred beyond words. Though matters could not get worse, one day after my father dropped me off, a white boy jumped me in the schoolyard. His friends joined in. They beat me. They kicked me. They stomped me. My mouth and my head were bloody. I hurt so badly. I just knew I was about to die. I asked myself, was this brutality worth the sacrifice to achieve equality? When the school bell rang, hundreds of children walked past me to class. No one offered any assistance as I bled and cried. Not one student wanted to be caught helping the unwanted and unwelcome black student. When I thought it was safe, I stumbled into the principal's office. I told him that I had been attacked and I needed to call my dad. The school rule had always been to notify an adult when you need help, but that made no difference in my case. The principal replied, "How do I know that you did not come to school bloody from your home? I did not see anyone mistreat you." The principal was uncaring and mean. He did not approve of me being at the school. He refused to let me use the telephone to call my dad. In those days, you could go into a phone booth and put a dime into a public telephone to make a call. Even though I was hurting badly, I struggled across the street, made my way to the payphone, and called my father to pick me up. When my dad picked me up, he immediately went to the black doctor in town. After stitching me up, the doctor instructed me to go home and try to mend. I pleaded with my dad not to make me go back to school. Seeing what I had gone through, my father said he would not force me to return. For the next 5 days, I stayed home to heal. It gave me a lot of time to think about what I was going to do and how it would impact my future and the future of other black students. Before the week ended, I had come to a decision. I refused to allow evil to win. It was important for me to finish what I have started. I kept my eyes on the prize. I had to return to school. As for my classmates, they increased their efforts in being mean and bullying me. They wanted me to leave their school and go back to the all-black school. They believed that white and blacks should not integrate. They believed that we were not equal. They were so mean and had so much evil in their hearts. Despite the horrors of my family and I experience, Black students were able to integrate Gainesville High School, and the doors for opportunity and access were kicked open. We were victorious. I became the first Black student to graduate from Gainesville High in 1965 because I refused to give up. I refused to drop out of school. I was a brave little cookie.